The studio lights were sharp and blinding. The set of Real Forum Live glowed in the signature blue on dread of American political shows. The theme music faded, and the audience clapped as the host, Rafiq Al-Hassani, stepped forward. His presence was calm but intense. His eyes searched the room like he already knew something others didn't. "Tonight," it said, smiling slightly, "we welcome Pamela Dorr, former state prosecutor, legal analyst, and now the face behind the new national security initiative, Liberty Forward PAC." The crowd clapped again, some cheers, but also murmurs. Pamela walked in wearing a navy blue suit, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, her walk composed. She smiled, shook Rafiq's hand, and sat down. On camera, it all looked normal. The first 5 minutes of the interview were smooth. Rafiq asked about the goals of Liberty Forward PAC, its plans to strengthen American values, and its push for increased defense spending. Pamela answered confidently, using phrases like protecting our children and securing the Taijing homeland. She spoke like a seasoned politician, polished, focused, and always smiling. But then Rafiq leaned forward. His voice dropped, and the audience seemed to sense a shift in the air. "Pamela," he said, flipping a page in his notes, "while your PAC claims to promote transparency and democracy, we've come across documents that suggest something very different." Pamela's smile didn't fade, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "I'm not sure what you mean." Rafiq held up a printed folder. "3 days ago, we received these leaked files. Internal communications between your office, a defense contractor named Arkan Dynamics, and an oil advisory board based in Doha, Qatar." There was a pause. Silence in the studio. Pamela blinked once, then spoke slowly. "If those documents are real, I haven't seen them, and I'd be very interested in knowing how you got them." "They mention you by name," Rafiq continued, "approving lobbying funds to influence Senate votes and surveillance initiatives that fall outside the Patriot Act." A quiet gasp moved through the audience. The producers looked panicked behind the glass. Pamela adjusted her microphone. Her face now had the tight look of someone trying to keep control. "You're accusing me of crimes, live on national television, with unverified materials." "I'm asking questions," Rafiq said, his tone colder now. Like any journalist should. Pamela took a breath. This interview was supposed to be about my PAC, my work, not some conspiracy. Rafiq nodded, but didn't look away. "The American public deserves to know whether its leaders are operating in shadows. Are you saying you've never met with Arkan Dynamics?" "I've met with many defense leaders. That's public record." "What about Farouk bin Adel?" Pamela froze just for a fraction of a second. Most viewers wouldn't have noticed it, but Rafiq did. He leaned in again. "He's not on any public record." "But he's in these emails. And your team booked a hotel suite for him in Manhattan last March." Pamela's mouth opened slightly, then closed. She smiled again, but it was tight and tired now. "I think we're done here." Before Rafiq could say anything, Pamela reached up and calmly removed her mic. She stood. The studio fell into dead silence. The producers looked horrified. Rafiq stood too. "Pamela, this isn't a trial. If it's not true, why not clarify?" Pamela turned to him with a look that wasn't angry. It was something colder, like disgust wrapped in disappointment. "This isn't journalism," she said, voice low but audible. "This is theater, and I won't be part of it." She walked off stage. The audience didn't clap. Nobody moved. The camera stayed on Rafiq. He looked down at the folder in his hands, then back at the camera. "Well," he said softly, "that was unexpected." The segment ended early. Commercials ran. Online, people began posting clips within minutes. The hashtag started trending within the hour. Hashtag mic drop door. Hashtag RAFIQ leaks. Real forum showdown. By midnight, every news channel had picked it up. Half the commentators were calling it an ambush. The other half called it truth-telling. Conspiracy theorists said Pamela had been set up by globalists. Others said Rafik had exposed a ticking bomb. The leaked documents were still not officially verified, but the names, the email addresses, and the attached itineraries matched publicly known schedules. By morning, members of Congress were calling for a special hearing. One senator tweeted, "If any part of this is true, we're looking at treason, hidden behind a pack." Pamela's spokesperson released a single statement. Ms. Dorr will not dignify theatrical journalism with further response. Her focus remains on American security. But behind closed doors, Pamela's team was in crisis mode. Her donors were panicking. Political allies were distancing themselves. One aide leaked a message. She wasn't ready. Rafik caught her off balance. She cracked. Meanwhile, Rafik received an anonymous email that same night. No subject, no text. Just one attachment, a video file labeled Sundial Phase 2. He clicked it. The screen went black. Then a voice said, "You've opened the door. Now let's see if you have the courage to walk through." And the video began. ChatGPT said, "The fallout the sun hadn't yet risen over Washington, D.C., but already the media frenzy had turned into a storm." Rafika Al-Hassani's interview with Pamela Dorr had dominated every screen from gas stations to airports, from smartphones to massive studio panels on news channels. What was meant to be a controlled public appearance had exploded into a national crisis. Liberty Forward PAC released a second statement just after 6 a.m. It accused Real Forum Live of conducting a calculated smear campaign with possibly doctored materials. But by then, the damage was done. Pamela's walk-off had been replayed so many times it no longer looked like an exit. It looked like an escape. In the newsroom of the Sentinel, a progressive online platform, reporter Laura Ngozi stared at her screen. She had covered Pamela for 5 years, from courtroom victories to her rise through conservative circles. But this was different. She paused the video clip from last night again. Pamela's pause. The way her face lost color after the mention of Farouk bin Adel. It was real. Not political acting. Real fear. Laura picked up her phone and texted Rafik and Josie. "You just stepped into something dangerous. What else do you have?" No reply, but the read receipt confirmed he saw it. By 10 a.m., 4 senators had called for an ethics inquiry into Pamela Dorr. 3 prominent right-wing think tanks distanced themselves. But something strange started to happen to bots. Thousands of suspicious social media accounts, mostly new, started flooding the conversation online. They posted clips edited to make Pamela seem like a victim. They attacked Rafik. They even called for boycotts of Real Forum Live. The term media hit job began trending. Rafik knew this tactic. He had reported from Gaza, Tehran, Kiev, when bots swarmed a journalist. It wasn't random, it was strategy. Someone was trying to drown out the story, to bury it in noise. That evening, Rafik sat in a dark studio room with his producer, Isaac. "What do you know about Operation Sundial?" Rafik asked. Isaac frowned. "Nothing. Should I?" "I got a file last night," Rafik said. "Anonymous, labeled Phase 2. I haven't opened it fully yet. But I think this goes way deeper than Dorr." Isaac leaned back. "How deep?" Rafik hesitated. Then he said, "Foreign contracts. Off the books surveillance. Energy corridor deals with private contractors. And it's not just us operatives. There's UK involvement. It's possibly French. You think she's a front?" "I think she's a cog," Rafik replied. "And we just kicked the machine." Meanwhile, Laura dug into her old case files. She found something, a 2017 classified leak she had received but never published. It had seemed minor at the time. A private meeting between Pamela and 2 retired intelligence officers, both of whom had quietly relocated to Dubai months later. One of them, Colonel Anson Merrick, had connections to Archon Dynamics. the defense contractor named in the leaked documents. She tried calling Rafik again. No answer. At 11:42 p.m., Laura received a strange email. No sender name, just an encrypted message that read, "He won't make it to air again if you don't act. Sundial has eyes everywhere. The files are in Geneva." As for Kato, her heart pounded. Okay. She read the message again and saved it offline. This wasn't just politics anymore. It was espionage. Come on. That same night, Rafik's home network went dark. His phone locked up, then shut down. When he restarted it, half his files were gone. But one folder had been added, a video, automatically. Saved, he played it. A figure sat in shadow, voice scrambled. "You've started a fire," the voice said. Pamela was never the target. The show was just a signal. A signal for what? Rafik asked aloud, though he knew the video couldn't respond. The voice continued. "This isn't about oil or defense. It's about silence. People like you make too much noise. That noise ends now. We'll give you one chance. Step back or they'll finish what they started in Ankara." Rafik's blood ran cold. Ankara, the ambush. The journalist who was found dead, officially an accident? But he had always known it wasn't. He shut off the laptop and pulled the SIM from his phone. Meanwhile, at a luxury estate outside Richmond, Virginia, Pamela Dorr stared at a whiteboard covered in red thread connections, flight logs, and names. Her assistant whispered, "They're closing in. Rafik has the Sundial file. Laura is in play, and Kador." Pamela raised a hand to silence him. "I know." She stood and walked to a locked drawer. Inside was a gun, a passport, and a drive. Marked, "Geneva Phase 0. We go dark," she said quietly. The bridge rain struck the windows of a Swiss cafe near the edge of Lake Geneva. Laura Ngozi sat in a corner booth, sipping black coffee, nerves raw. Her eyes scanned the quiet room, pausing at every movement. In her coat pocket, she kept the encrypted flash drive she'd received from an anonymous courier at the airport earlier that morning. The message had been simple from Kador. "Don't plug it into anything connected to the internet." Across the table sat Camille Rouet, French cyber activist turned whistleblower. Camille had worked with WikiLeaks in 2012 and had been on the run ever since. She wore a gray scarf, her short hair hidden under a wool cap, and spoke in low, clipped tones. "The Sundial Protocol was never supposed to be exposed," she said. "It's not a program. It's an ideology, a playbook for post-sovereign control. The people behind it don't represent countries. They represent continuity, oil, data, surveillance, regime shaping. They make elections look like theater." Laura didn't blink. "Pamela Dorr is working for them." Camille shook her head. "She was. She may still be, but she's replaceable. Always was." Outside, a white van circled the block again. Laura noticed. Camille didn't react. "I need you to look at what's on this drive," Laura said. Camille opened a radiation-hardened laptop and carefully connected the drive. After a few moments, files began to unroll audio logs, financial spreadsheets, and one folder marked Phoenix Bridge Directives. Camille clicked it open. Her breath caught. "What?" Laura asked. Camille turned the screen to her. The first document was a list of journalists, whistleblowers, and rogue agents. Some had red X's beside their names, killed or silenced. Others had question marks. Both Laura and Rafik's names were there, along with Pamela's. Below the list was a code phrase: "Activate Geneva Bridge if contact is made with any of the marked assets." Post-deployment. "What the hell is Geneva Bridge?" Laura whispered. Camille looked grim. "It's a reset protocol. If the network thinks it's been exposed, it wipes all evidence, including the people." Suddenly, Camille froze. Her fingers stopped typing. She whispered, "They're here." From the window, Laura saw them too. Two men in long coats, not police, not local. They moved like private security, quiet, calculating. One of them looked straight at the cafe. Lara ducked. Camille shoved the laptop and drive into a lead-lined bag and handed it to Lara. Take the back alley. There's a train at Montbrillant. Go south, then vanish. Do not go online. Don't trust hotel Wi-Fi. Don't call Rafik. They're already watching him. What about you? Lara asked. Camille smiled faintly. I've been hiding for a decade. I'll manage. Lara ran. Through the back kitchen, down an alley, past wet cobblestones that echoed with her steps. Cheered! A shout behind her, then footsteps. Not many. 2. Maybe 3 men. Trained, fast. She ducked behind a trash container and pulled out a burner phone Camille had tossed into her bag. It had one preloaded number. Rafik's satellite phone. Hit send. Static. Then Rafik's voice tense. Where are you, Geneva? They found us. Camille gave me the drive. There's a protocol called Phoenix Bridge, a kill list. You're on it. So am I, Pamela, too. Silence. Then Rafik spoke, his voice low. They moved her. What? She's not in Richmond anymore. She's in Montenegro. Private jet landed this morning. Have a trace on the tail number. She's meeting someone named Marek Dusan. Old Cold War name. Slovak Intel. Now billionaire arms fixer. She's burning the trail, Lara said. No, Rafik replied. He's sliding the match. The line cut, crossed the Atlantic. In a dimly lit estate overlooking the Bay of Kotor, Pamela Dorr sat in front of a roaring fireplace. Marek Dusan stood by the window, watching boats move through the fog. Pamela placed the Geneva Phase drive on the table. I want out, she said. I've done everything the board asked. But this sundial, Phoenix, the executions, this isn't what I signed up for. Dusan turned, eyes narrow. Up there is no out. Pamela laughed bitterly. Then why call me here? Dusan poured a drink. To give you one chance. You started a chain reaction when you walked off that stage. And now the system needs a new face. I won't be their puppet. Any more? Then you'll be their warning. Pamela stood. Her hand shook. They'll come for me anyway, Rafik. Lara. They know now. Dusan nodded. And soon so will the world. But not in the way they expect. He handed her an envelope. Inside a new ID, boarding passes, and coordinates for a private airstrip in Albania. Run now, he said, or be erased like the rest. Back in Geneva, Lara boarded a train south, gripping the bag with the drive. She looked out the window as the city faded behind her. Somewhere deep in the shadows, a protocol had been triggered. She didn't know when. She didn't know how. But Phoenix Bridge had begun. The broadcast a week past. 7 days of silent movement, encrypted signals, and distant explosions dressed as accidents. Across 3 continents, power brokers shuffled. Behind boardroom doors, CEOs disappeared for health reasons. One UN envoy was found dead in his Geneva hotel room, heart failure, they said. No autopsy released. In an unlisted safe house on the outskirts of Palermo, Italy, Rafik al-Hassani set up a makeshift broadcast studio. He hadn't appeared live since the Pamela Dorr interview. His producers were scattered, most in hiding. Old network, real forum. Liv was facing internal investigation and had been temporarily pulled off air by its own board, citing security breaches. But Rafik wasn't done. The encrypted files Lara had retrieved, decrypted, now with Camille's help, were devastating. Names, dates, wire transfers, not just Pamela Dorr, but members of parliament in the UK, a sitting senator in the US, and 2 members of a Scandinavian royal family. Surveillance contracts issued to shell companies registered in Singapore. Deepfake technology embedded in election coverage. A private intelligence network nicknamed Mirage linked to Sundial and run off-grid from a former NATO base in Croatia. It was no longer just a scandal. It was proof of a shadow system so vast, even speaking its name could put you on a kill list. Still, Rafik decided to go live. This signal would piggyback off a dozen dormant satellites and burst across the world like a pirate radio beam. Old school journalism in its most dangerous form. He leaned toward the camera. No studio lights, just the yellow hum of an overhead bulb. His voice was calm, slow, heavy with the weight of what he knew. If you're watching this, he began, then the system has not yet succeeded in silencing the truth. He paused, letting the words settle. I'm Rafiq Al-Hassani. For over 2 decades, I've reported from front lines not just of wars, but of governments, corporations, alliances, and algorithms. Tonight, what I bring to you is not speculation. It is evidence. Verified, cross-checked, and sealed at great personal cost by journalists, whistleblowers, and ex-agents who may no longer be alive by the time you see this. He pulled out a small hard drive and held it toward the lens. This contains over 200 gigabytes of data, internal memos, video recordings, black site transfers, financial trails, all pointing to a global covert operation known as Project Sundial. Its objective, manipulation of geopolitical narratives using artificial intelligence. Staged conflicts, private militaries, and political figureheads. All in the service of a network of ultra-nationalist financiers and corporate stakeholders. He played one short video, a meeting in a London penthouse. Pamela Dorr seated next to a man labeled Agent Mr., her voice unmistakable. If the vote swings, we trigger Doosan. He'll initiate Phoenix Bridge. Geneva will light the signal. The footage cut. Rafiq stared at the screen. Pamela Dorr was never just a politician. She was a broker. A face the American public would trust while she sold your democracy piece by piece to foreign investors and silent partners. He exhaled sharply. I don't know how long this stream will last. I don't know if I'll be alive tomorrow. But I do know this truth: when spoken, travels faster than fear. In Montenegro, a private jet stood waiting at a hidden airstrip. Pamela Dorr watched the stream from her phone, her hands trembling. He did it, she said to no one. Murat Doosan was gone, vanished. His estates raided, his accounts frozen. No one had seen him in 5 days. Word was he had either defected or died in his own bunker. Pamela reached for a small velvet pouch in her bag. Inside was a pin, the old Department of Justice insignia. She hadn't worn it in years. She clipped it to her lapel. In Palermo, Rafiq's signals started to fade. Didu's attacks had begun. 3 signals dropped. 2 proxies corrupted. But one backup server based in Kenya stayed alive. Enough. The footage was already downloaded in Argentina, Norway, Ghana, and Vietnam. Lara Ngozi had set it all in motion. From a cafe in Rabi, she uploaded the master archive to Epoch Mirror, a global decentralized network of whistleblower data. It was out. Within 48 hours, the reactions rippled across the globe. In Washington, a congressional emergency session was called. The president ordered an independent counsel. In London, Parliament demanded hearings. In Riyadh and Abu Dhabi, officials scrambled to deny all involvement, even as leaked calls flooded Telegram. In New York, protesters gathered outside media headquarters. No more puppets became the slogan. Pamela Dorr's jet never took off. Instead, she made one call. To a contact in The Hague. I'm ready to testify, she said. I want protection, full immunity, and Rafiq's safety in writing. No reply came immediately, but the signal was heard. Back in Palermo, Rafiq stepped away from the camera. The immunity Delva morning fog over The Hague was cold and heavy, like breath that never left the lungs. Pamela Dorr stepped out of a black armored vehicle, flanked by 2 shadow-faced agents from the International Criminal Tribunal's Provisional Security Unit. Her hair was tied back, no makeup, no entourage. The courtroom was closed to the public by order, not by choice. She wasn't here to stand trial, not yet. She was here to trade secrets for sanctuary inside, seated beneath the steel insignia. Of the UN Security Council, the panel of 5 international prosecutors waited. One of them, Annika Helsen from the Netherlands had read the file sent by Lara Ngozi 2 days ago. She hadn't slept since what Pamela held in her head and on the secondary drive in her coat pocket. It could rewrite the way nations define sovereignty and war crimes, but only if they got to her, before someone else did. Pamela's eyes scanned the room. "Before we begin, I need to see it." Annika nodded. A screen lit up. It showed a grainy live stream of Rafik al-Hassani in a safe house near Palermo. He was sitting with Lara, alive, for now. Pamela breathed. "Then I'll talk." She pulled out. The drive. Code Helix Black. "You'll need a multi-layered decrypt protocol. I suggest starting with Mirage's internal map of state-aligned contractors. That's where you'll see the real tree." Annika raised a brow. "The root system." Pamela nodded. "They called it the lattice." What followed wasn't a confession. It was a controlled collapse. Pamela spoke for 7 hours. She named a ring of proxy firms used to influence elections in 8 democratic nations. She described front companies that managed metadata harvested from refugee camps. She showed how AI-powered predictive behavior models were used by financiers to pre-buy crisis markets knowing in advance where violence would erupt. She even named 2 world leaders currently in office who received covert stabilization funds to sabotage their own opposition movements. By the end, the room wasn't silent. It was stunned, and then Pamela did something unexpected. She placed a printed photo on the table. It was an old image, 10 years old at least, of a younger Rafik, standing next to a man with a blurred face, handshakes, smiles, a dessert in. The background, that, she said, is Kador Nasri, former Intel operative turned asset handler. He was the one who recruited me for Sundial. But he wasn't loyal to Doosan. He was building a failsafe, a break-glass option in case Sundial spiraled out of control. Kanika leaned in. "What kind of failsafe?" Pamela's eyes narrowed. "A public reckoning." He called it Wavefall. "A timed release of all suppressed archives. Global, unfiltered. Not through media, not through courts. Direct to the people." Annika's voice was sharp. "And what triggers it?" Pamela's reply chilled the room. "My death. Back in Palermo." Rafik stared at the secure line from the tribunal. His safe house had just been upgraded with 2 additional guards, both ex-French intel. He turned to Lara. "Wavefall," he repeated. "I heard rumors, but I thought it was just intel myth." "No," Lara said, "it's real." And Pamela just forced their hand. Hours later, the consequences began. 3 high-profile resignations occurred within a day. The prime minister of a G7 country cited mental health strain and vanished into seclusion. A South American president declared martial law without explanation. Meanwhile, encrypted data caches began appearing on the dark web, fragmentary leaks traced to servers across Iceland. Kenya, Ukraine, someone, somewhere had pre-triggered the Wavefall sequence. But it wasn't Kador Nazar. It was Camille Roux. She had gone dark after Geneva. Her signature was unmistakable. She had either stolen or been given access to the trigger files. And now she was deploying them with surgical intent enough to scare the architects of Sundial. But not enough to destroy the system. Not yet. In a secret meeting between EU Cyber defense leaders, the phrase geopolitical destabilization via decentralized journalism was spoken out loud. For the first time in history, news was classified as a potential WMD. In Washington. The National Security Council scrambled to develop a response. And still, Pamela Dorr sat in The Hague, guarded, interrogated, then protected. For now, that night, Annika received a private message. An old number. Untraceable. The message read, "Nasri is alive. He's in Istanbul." But not for long. Attached was a single photo. A man in a suit, gray beard, weathered face, looking directly into the camera. And beneath it, "If Pamela testifies at trial, everyone burns, including her." Annika turned off her phone and stared into the dark window. The immunity deal had bought them time. But time, like truth, had a price. ChatGPT said. The Istanbul pivot. The old ferry rattled across the Bosphorus like a relic defying modern speed. Istanbul's skyline shimmered in the hazy sunset, where minarets and satellites shared the sky. In the shadows of this divided city, Kador Nasri was hiding, or watching. No one was sure anymore. For Rafiq al-Hassani, the city felt too familiar, too full of ghosts. Istanbul had been his first post as a foreign correspondent. Now he was back, not with a press badge, but under a false name and forged EU diplomatic cover. Lara was with him, dressed like a tourist, her eyes scanning every street like they carried coded instructions. Camille Roux had gone dark again, but her leak had worked. The international data dump now had a name: the Wavefall Files. Dozens of journalists across the globe had begun sifting through them. Old guard newsrooms that once bowed to editorial constraints were suddenly emboldened. A fractured world was waking up to the mechanics of its own manipulation. And in the middle of it all stood Nasri, ex-intelligence ghost, code architect of Project Sundial, and the only person alive who knew how to end it cleanly. If he wanted to. He contacted me, Rafiq said as they passed through Kadiki's narrow lanes, encrypted voice. He said he'll meet one condition. Lara raised an eyebrow. What? No cameras. What? And no questions about Pamela. Lara didn't like it. He knows she flipped. He's protecting something or someone. Their rendezvous was set for a bookshop that didn't exist on any map. Sora. House of Forgotten Pages somewhere near Ballot. They found it hidden behind a fish market, down a cracked alley, its windows fogged, its doors unmarked. Inside, it was candlelit and silent. A man emerged from behind a curtain of dusty hanging newspapers. Kador Nasri. He looked nothing like the ghost they imagined. Tall, calm, dignified, worn down, but not broken. Rafiq, he said. It's been a long time. Rafiq nodded. You watched the stream? Nasri gave a thin smile. I wrote most of the playbook. You just aired it before they were ready. Lara crossed her arms. You built Sundial. You trained the handlers. You ran the simulations. How many people disappeared for what you created? Nasri looked at her, unflinching. More than I will ever forgive myself for. There was a silence, cold and sharp. Then Nasri turned to a desk and placed a thin tablet on it. He tapped in a passcode and a real-time map of world data exchanges lit up. Traffic flows, anomalies, live attacks, forged AI narratives. This is what's coming, he said. Sundial was just a phase. Mirage was containment. But the final protocol is what they call Prism Echo. It's not about controlling media. It's about replacing consensus entirely. Reality becomes optional. Lara blinked. You mean ... deepfakes? Simulation governments? Nasri nodded. They're testing full population conditioning. A new class of AI that doesn't just write headlines or sway elections, it crafts full alternate timelines. Each citizen gets a narrative tailored to their fears. Not mass manipulation, psychological isolation at scale. Rafiq's stomach turned, and who's behind it now? Deucin is gone, Pamela's turning. Who's left? Nasri hesitated. There's no single architect anymore. It's a machine now, self-learning, self-defending. But there is one key, one way to force a global audit. He pulled a small metal capsule from his coat pocket. The Unity trigger. It's a whistle protocol embedded in every iteration of Prism Echo's architecture. Launch this on a clean line somewhere untraceable, and it disables all current narratives running under the protocol. Rafiq stared. Why haven't you used it? Nasri's voice dropped. Because the moment I do, world governments will fall. Literally. The system is too integrated. Sundial has its code in telecoms, financial markets, even hospital records. You disable it, and planes crash. Heart monitors fail. Elections collapse. Lara stepped forward. So what's the point? Let it keep growing. Nasri handed her the capsule. No, that's why I called you. Not to end Sundial, but to prepare for its unraveling. You don't kill this thing with a bullet. Dismantle it with witnesses. He pointed to Rafik. That's you. That's your power. Tell the people. Not just what happened, but what there's still inside. Outside, the muezzin's call to prayer echoed across the skyline, haunting, defiant. Then the gunshot came. A sniper. Glass shattered. Nasri lunged, pulling Rafik and Lara down. Another shot ripped through the back wall. Rafik saw blood. Nasri had been hit. He pressed the capsule into Rafik's hand, his breath shallow. Don't. Let it vanish again. If I die, ... the trigger resets. Time locked. You'll have 3 hours to launch it. Where? There's an old NATO relay station. Top of Mount Zabliak, Montenegro, still off-grid. Nasri's eyes fluttered. Lara called for help, but it was too late. Kador Nasri, father of the modern disinformation empire, died in a forgotten bookstore, holding the key to the truth he once helped bury. Rafik stood up slowly, blood on his hands, fury in his chest. The relay, the narrow trail to Mount Zablik summit, was carved in silence and snow. Above, gray clouds rolled like bruises across the Balkans, heavy with the weight of coming change. Rafik al-Hassani's boots crunched on frostbitten stone, his breath shallow in the thinning air. Slung around his shoulder was a weatherproof tactical bag inside it. The Unity trigger. He had 3 hours left. Lara walked behind him, bruised but steady. They had crossed borders by land, changed IDs twice, and buried Nasri in secret in a graveyard without names. His death was already being denied online, the first proof that Sundial's reach still lived. At the summit stood a squat, rusting NATO communications tower, long since abandoned on paper, but humming now with hidden energy. A single steel door stood between them and the last functioning clean relay line in Eastern Europe. Lara pulled a decrypt tool from her coat. You sure about this? She asked. No, Rafik said. But I'm sure we're out of time. The door opened with a creak. Inside, the air was stale and electric. Cables snaked like vines across. The walls, an old Cold War console, blinked slowly in standby. But at its center was a module that Nasri's capsule fit perfectly into. A green light flickered. Relay active, said a robotic voice in English, French, and Arabic. Rafik took out a flash drive. He had spent the last 3 hours preparing a final message. Not a report, not a story, but a confession. He had narrated the full arc, from Pamela's walkout on Real Forum Live to Lara's investigation, to Nasri's secret, to the rise of Prism Echo, the program that turned fact into fiction and people into pawns. He looked at Lara. Once it launches, no going back. She nodded. Then don't wait. Rafik slid the drive into the terminal. The screen asked, activate Unity trigger. This action will broadcast the wavefall files in full. Disable all active narrative protocols of Project Sundial. Expose the data ecosystems of affected sovereign. Governments trigger irreversible. Political, economic, and social destabilization confirm. Yes, no. He hovered over the key. Then pressed yes. The console began to hum louder. Satellite icons turned green one by one. All across the globe, in newsrooms, universities, data vaults, and mobile phones, a flood of real files began to appear. Hidden history. Censored. Footage, ghost budgets, whistleblower testimony long erased. Wavefall had arrived. In Washington, entire segments of federal servers shut down under protocol overload. In Paris, a live debate was hijacked by raw footage from black sites in Mali. In Brazil, a court was stormed by protesters holding documents that hadn't existed 10 minutes earlier. Truth had broken through, but so had chaos. And then the system struck back. A sudden pulse fried the old NATO terminal. Sparks, smoke, a hiss. The Unity trigger ejected itself, scorched black. Lara grabbed Rafik and pulled him back as alarms rang. Outside, a black drone hovered, military-grade, silent. Then a second move. Lara shouted. They ran, descending the ridge, just as the tower exploded behind them in a deafening roar of fire and memory. But it was done. The files were out. The code was public. The illusion was broken. 1 week later, Pamela Dorr stood alone in the tribunal chamber. No cameras, no lawyers. Only Annika Helson sat before her. "You watched?" Pamela asked. Annika nodded. "All of it. The world did, and you've bought yourself time, not freedom." Pamela smiled faintly. Time is all I ever needed. A buzzer sounded. Guards came. She was led away, but not in shame, in resolve. 2 weeks later, Camille Roux reappeared in a leaked video. No location. No timestamp. She looked tired, but clear. Prism. Echo is still alive, she said. Fragments remain. The system will try to regrow, but it fears one thing. Memory, yours. Her eyes bored into the lens. Don't forget what you saw. Don't forget that it was all real. And don't let them build another sundial in the dark. 6 weeks later, Rafik Al-Hassoni published one final article. It wasn't hosted by any network. No logo, just a blank page titled, "This was never about secrets. It was about power." It read, in part, they called it a leak. But it was a reckoning. Not because the world couldn't handle the truth, but because they feared what we would do with it. So do something. The article was read by 1.2 billion people in 48 hours. By then, elections were collapsing, parliaments dissolving, new civic networks rising. The world didn't fall apart. It rebooted. Asterisk, asterisk, and somewhere in a train station in Portugal, Lara Ngozi bought a coffee and disappeared into the crowd. Her name already fading from headlines, just the way she wanted. Some stories are too dangerous to own, some truths too powerful to be told. But they are never, ever forgotten.